So Paul Cook there alongside the former British Touring Car Championship driver Rick Kerry, number 2. Richard Bromley, number 27, is on the inside of row 3 in his green E36 M3, and it's an E46, so a slightly more modern car for Kaz Singh, the orange car, which if you're looking on your live stream, is pointing at a rather jaunty angle from the fourth row of the grid. There is a green flag lap to sort that out before the race gets underway, though. Graham Crowhurst, a man that won in the Tagiwa M3 Cup last year, he lines up in the inside of row number 5, car number 15, with several competitors moving over from the M3 Cup and the 330 Challenge into the BMW Car Club Racing Championship for this season. And alongside him will be the number 91 car, which is Hugh Gurney, as the green flag lap gets underway then, ahead of this 13-minute plus 1 lap race. Hugh Gurney is an author, in actual fact. He has written a book, The Prince of Naples, as we now get on, for everyone at home, the grid graphic up on screen. So on pole position, it will be number 1, Chris Byallen, alongside him, number 58, Chris Byallen, number 44, Michael Cutt, alongside him. Robert Davidson, David Heasman, row 2, Paul Cook and Rick Kerry on the 3rd row of the grid, Richard Bromley and Kaz Singh on row 4. Graham Crowhurst and Hugh Gurney on the 5th row, Gary Hufford, who was a regular in the M3 Cup last season, and Jason Hollyhead on row 6, Wayne Lewis and Adrian Williams on the 7th row, Kevin Denwood and Darren Ball, a 330 Challenge refugee, on row 8. Row 9 of the grid has Gareth Montgomery and Stuart Pywell, Bill Redrop and Michael Dark making his racing debut on row 10. Jim Benson and Matt Page, row 11. Rob Allman and Colin Gillespie should be on row 11, but his car missing. He suffered a misfire in practice. Raheem Ballou and Mark Coulmer on the 13th row. Clive Watson and Richard Harrison on row 14. Adrian Ferdinands and David Morris on the 15th row of the grid. You can see right at the back Sean Jackson and Pete Skinner rounding out what is a very big field for this opening BMW Car Club Racing event of the season. Absolutely, and that's something we've got to get used to throughout the day, the big grids, and we can look forward to 33 BMWs, I guess it will be in the end, starting this opening round of the Car Club Racing Championship. And of course, the first time, as Ian was saying earlier, this is a championship. It was a series in 2018 and started off with about 20 odd cars at Castle Combe, wasn't it? So a great start to the season, to the series last year, and it's just grown throughout 2018, and now as we start a championship, well over 30 cars, and a good mix between the classes too. It's fairly even between the categories. Yeah. With, as we mentioned earlier, the M cars at the front, M1 and M2, then the 6-cylinder cars, the Cup class, as well as the 4-cylinder class. So we're trying to keep an eye on all the classes throughout the duration of this 13-minute plus 1 lap race. The kind of lap times we're looking at, well, it was 1 minute 42 that Chris Byallen set in qualifying this morning that put him on pole in M1. M2 went to Paul Cook, his 5th overall, on 1:45. Class 6 pole sitter was Kevin Denwood in his compact. He's done a 1 minute 51. The Cup class pole is Matt Page. He starts 22nd overall in his 325 Ti, a 1 minute 54 for him. And the 4-cylinder pole man is Richard Harrison, his 318. He's done a 1 minute 57. So lap traffic will become a factor, I think, in the closing stages of the race. The cars, though, making their way onto the grid. And Chris Byallen's going to have to wait quite a while, isn't he, Ian, because of the amount of cars. He's on to the pole position spot as the cars continue to make their way around the Grand Prix loop. Yeah, and as Josh says, and you could probably deduce by those lap times, we're on the full Grand Prix circuit, the 2.49 mile Grand Prix circuit here at Donington Park this weekend, rather than the shorter national circuit, so they turn left, as we can see on the pictures there at the Fogarty S's, rather than right through the Robert chicane. So a very full grid of cars. The final ones just making their way up the hill towards Goddard's, and then we'll be underway for this 13-minute plus 1 lap race. So we'll probably get something like about 9 laps out of this, I would estimate. But it's going to be looking good for Chris Byallen with that qualifying time, 1.02 seconds faster than anybody else this morning in the practice session. One thing we did notice at Brands Hatch for Chris Byallen, he very much struggled to get that GTR off the grid. So let's hope he does a better job than he managed just 8 days ago. Yeah, and in particular that was in the second Armed Forces race, wasn't it, where he didn't get off the line at all and then got collected. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Let's keep touching wood. Right, so the last few cars are coming into position, and it's a very colourful grid, isn't it, for this BMW Car Club Racing Championship.
Yes,
Great to see so many BMWs on one grid.
And the liveries, like you were just saying, really good. You've got some plain cars. They look good as well, don't they? You're sort of keeping it plain. There's a good mix between that and sort of full liveries and with sponsorship on the side of the cars as well. The green flag, though, waves at the back of the field. Yeah,
5-second board is up, waiting for the red lights to go on, which they will do any moment. And the race about to get underway then. And they're off, and it's not a great start by the pole position man, as you predicted. Chris Byallen already dropping down to third position. It's Mike Cutt, but then actually from the outside of the second row of the grid, David Heasman in the number 5 car that's trying to sweep around the outside as they go into Redgate for the first time. But it looked like it was just Mike Cutt holding on then as they head through the Craner curve, through Redgate, down through Hollywood towards the Craner curves for the first time. It looks like Paul Cook has made his way up into third position. Robert Davidson, I think, is in fourth spot, and the pole position man, Chris Byallen, is down to fifth.
Absolutely. So Mike Cutt, who was the most successful driver last year, he won 3 of the BMW Car Club Racing Series races, leads the way coming out of the old hairpin. Now side by side in the mid-pack there, that was Wayne Lewis and the Graham Crowhurst, 2 drivers that raced in the M3 Cup last year. But it's Paul Cook that leads a M2 category. You can see Chris Byallen challenging behind him to try and get up into 4th place, and he's done that. He's got ahead of Robert Davidson, who challenges back up the hill towards Coppice. Is Davidson going to get that place back? No, he doesn't. The much more meaty GTR there of Byallen up into 4th then.
And they're heading their way down the straight, the exhibition straight, towards the Fogarty S's for the first time. Then Mike Cutt making a bit of a break out front here then from Heasman in second place, Paul Cook in third. Be interesting to see what Chris Byallen can do from 5th position through the Fogarty S's for the first time, and then down to the right-hand hairpin at Melbourne. And it is a good lead that the red car of Mike Cutt does indeed have here. Certainly wasn't really what we're expecting based on what we saw in qualifying. A bit of a battle further back down the order, though. That is between number 4 Gary Hufford and 47 Wayne Lewis. Meanwhile, number 3 therefore, that is Kaz Singh making up ground as the leaders head back up to Gollards for the first time. Some
really cool camera shots there as on the inside of the 2 hairpins. You really can see how tight the battle is. As you mentioned, Byallen fell back behind Robert Davidson, so Davidson got the better run through Coppice Corner after Byallen passed him just through that turn, or the previous turn, down into Redgate then to start lap 2. There's Rick Kerry turning through in the 1 Series. He's ahead of Graham Crowhurst and then Gary Hufford, who was a winner last year at Brands Hatch. So out of Redgate he goes. He's got Wayne Lewis behind him. Richard Bromley and Kaz Singh complete the top 10.
Yeah, 3/4 of a second then the gap between Heasman and Cook at the end of the first lap. So we've not seen Mike Cutt actually on our screens, but yeah, he was another 2 seconds very nearly ahead of the rest, and he's still leading the way then as they head up through McLean's once again. Well, I say he has headed through on his own. There's one car that has gone off, though, I can see at the old hairpin at the bottom of the Craner curves. That's one from, I think, a bit further back down the order, but it's Mike Cutt then that continues to lead, and he's almost leaving everyone else standing here, it seems.
Absolutely, a really strong run there, Ian.
And it's Davidson that's gone, isn't it? The man that was in 4th place has gone by the looks of it. He's no longer in that leading group. So that is the car that's gone missing, we think, down there at the old hairpin. But the leaders down at Fogarty S's once again. That means that Chris Byallen now is up to 4th place then in that number 58 car. You can see he's chasing after Paul Cook. So the 2 drivers that were both in the same road sports race at Brands Hatch last weekend are at it hammer and tongs once again.
Hasn't taken long for Byallen to close in on Paul Cook, has it? He was, some 1 second behind in the more powerful M1 car of Byallen, now coming alongside Paul Cook, but he's got the outside line for the Goddard's hairpin. So that means Paul Cook can hold on there. But what Byallen will be trying to do is get the acceleration off of the final corner and trying to challenge on the way down toward Redgate. The 2 cars are nose to tail as they complete lap number 2 of this race, and Byallen trying to get the slipstream off of the E46 of Cook. Up the inside he goes, a much more meaty GTR car. You can see the big wheel arches on Chris Byallen's car. He goes up into 3rd position. He's now got a second or so to close in on David Heasman, but Heasman 5 seconds behind the race leader, Mike Cutt, who is absolutely flying up front.
Yeah, he's a 1:43.37 on the first flying lap of the race, which is at least 2 seconds faster than anybody else out on track at the moment. So we've now got Byallen ahead of Paul Cook. The next car in line, the car in 5th place, is number 2, Rick Kerry. It's worth saying that Paul Cook is actually in the M2 class rather than the M1 class, so he's leading class M2 as well. All the classes being led by Darren Ball, leading class 6 at the minute. and we'll get an eye on what's going on in the other classes as well. But here now is Heisman under pressure from Byalon, so he's got past Paul Cook, and now he's putting the pressure on David Heisman then as they come down the exhibition straight. Actually down the straight it looks like Heisman's got the legs on that car a little bit, which surprises me as they head down towards the fog dishes, but there's a battle going on a few places further back as well, and this is the one involving Gary Hufford and Graham Crowhurst.
Absolutely, it's Crowhurst that's still ahead, but a better run out of the S's from Gary Hufford, so he's going up the inside in towards the Melbourne hairpin. He's got the line, so is he going to be able to go through there? Absolutely level as they turn into the corner. What Hufford's got to watch out here is not to run out too wide, and that's what he's done. So on the power earlier is Graham Crowhurst, and is Crowhurst going to be able to get through? But again, he's on the wrong line. Gary Hufford still on the inside line as they turn left now into Goddard's, and Hufford is going to hang on there to what is sixth. So he's gone through into sixth, hasn't he, after that pass down in towards the S's. So Gary Hufford, a race winner last year, into sixth, down to seventh for Graham Crowhurst, who was a winner in the M3 Cup last year.
That time through, Michael Cook was a bit slower. His lead has been eaten into by the tune of half a second. It's down to 4.34 seconds now between Cut and David Heisman in second place.
It was a slow lap from Cut, wasn't it? A couple of seconds slower than he'd done earlier. So I wonder how quick he's gone off, whether he's overheated his tyres at this stage. There's a great battle coming out of Redgate and onto Hollywood. That is Kaz Singh, who is battling with Hugh Gurney, and I think this is the battle to be within the top 10, and they're just passing that incident on the left-hand side there of Robert Davidson after he went off earlier, but Singh's got a good run there down into the old hairpin and stays ahead of Hugh Gurney as they make their way up towards Free Swans Curve and up towards McLean's.
Yeah, so we are on lap number 4 of this race, as you can see from the clock ticking down. Only 6 minutes and 40 seconds to go, plus 1 lap, so there's an extra lap at the end of this as well, a bit like Formula E runs to these days.
In the background, Rick Kerry's going up the inside of Paul Cook into the S's. Meanwhile, we watched the battle of a second place. That's David Heisman just ahead of Chris Byalon. And Heisman, of course, picking his pace up because he was, as we mentioned, about a second or so quicker than Michael Cutt on that previous lap. So sort of being urged on by the pace of Chris Byalon behind him. Looks like somebody's had an off up at Coppice Corner, but I think that car's got back out of the gravel, so no real dramas there. And Byalon slower through the hairpins here, Ian, and David Heisman getting away, but then much later on the brakes into Goddard's and the two cars are together again.
Now what's happened to the gap though between first and second, because it had come down on the previous lap to 4.34 seconds. It's come down again to just over 4 seconds now, so it's come down by another 0.3 of a second. They're turning their way now through the right-hander at Redgate Corner as Kaz Singh has had a bit of a moment there, and he's lost a little bit of time now to Hugh Gurney. So Hugh Gurney now does move up into 10th position, and he now is chasing after that bright green car of Richard Bromley.
Notice Chris Byalon really struggling for traction off the hairpins, but through the corners using the aero of that GTR right underneath the rear wing now of David Heisman as they make their way up towards Swans Curve and up towards McLean's. Is there going to be a challenge here? But again, just can't seem to get the power up the hill. It's got lots of aero, that GTR of Chris Byalon. I wonder if that's causing him some straight line speed difficulties. Meanwhile, Kaz Singh gets one of those positions back going through the old hairpin. That looked like Richard Bromley who's dropped back, so maybe a mistake from him.
Still this fight going on for second and third. Rick Kerry now into fourth.
Is Rick Kerry closing them in?
He is, yeah. He certainly, well, the gap was nearly 3 seconds at the beginning of the lap. It looks like it's much less than that now as they head down the exhibition straight towards the Fogarty S's once again. This is lap 5, and it's certainly Heisman and Byalon probably slowing each other up a little bit here and allowing the very experienced Rick Kerry, who started out racing, I think, in classic touring cars, in an XR3 Group 1 touring cars many years ago. It's a bit wide there for Heisman. This is going to give Byalon the opportunity. He needs to get alongside as they're coming out of the Melbourne hairpin. They're absolutely door mirror to door mirror as they come up the straight towards the left-hander at Goddard's, but of course Heisman there had the inside line.
He's got to make sure he breaks in time this time. He doesn't run out wide. Is Byalon going to be able to get alongside him as they come onto the start and finish straight? And they've got to watch out because we've been saying Rick Kerry, what was a 3-second gap, he's pretty much half now. So once he got past Paul Cook, he was really able to pull away, and he sets the fastest lap of the race there, 1 minute 44.48 from Kerry there in fourth place to close in this second place battle as they make their way out of Redgate. So Heisman still ahead of Byalon. A great defensive drive this has been from Heisman because, of course, Byalon caught him really quick, didn't he, Ian, but hasn't been able to find a way through.
No, he's not, even when there was a bit of a mistake made down at the Melbourne hairpin by that number 5 car, David Heisman. Paul Cook, by the way, still leading the M2 class. He's in 5th position overall. overall, and the Class 6 is being led by Darren Ball by about 2.5 seconds from Kevin Denwood.
It was just a personal best lap, wasn't it, from Kerry, so he's not quite beaten that really quick time early on from Mike Cutt, but personal best lap from Rick Kerry to close in on this battle for second place that we concentrate on. And very shortly they're going to be in lap traffic too, and it's pretty close towards the rear of the field, so that's going to make the traffic more complex to come through. But as Ian suggested, in that battle, that means Mike Cutt getting away again. So it's been a very quiet race really for the race leader Mike Cutt. It's all been about this battle for second over the last couple of laps. Into the S's they come. Heisman ahead of Byalon, not even a car length between the two cars, but again traction off the corners is where David Heisman just seems to be able to get the advantage over the chaser. Chris Byalon down into the Melbourne hairpin much later on the brakes. It's Byalon, and you couldn't really fit much between the two BMWs there as they turned through the corner.
No, and they're climbing back up towards Goddard once again, but hopefully Heisman, from his point of view, will be able to hold on. But look how close Rick Kerry is to the back of them now. He's going to make this a three-car battle. Meanwhile, Mike Cutt in the lead of the race is just on a new fastest lap, a 1 minute 43.13. He's now getting stuck into the traffic as well, but these three, but it is three now, really slowing each other up. Also in the background, watch out for the number 4 car, the orangey-coloured car of Gary Hufford, now closing in on the back of Paul Cook as well for P5 overall. But this is the battle for P2. It's Heisman, Byalon and Kerry.
Out of Redgate they go. We should get, what, 2 laps after this one, won't we? Because we've got to remember the added lap on at the end of the timed element. As we can see now through the crane occurred, Rick Kerry right on the tail of Chris Byalon as they turn their way onto the old hairpin. Byalon, though, very much is the quickest through the corners, is right on the tail once again of David Heisman. I think it's the straight line speed in that's just affecting him not being able to make a move, and there's a real battle going on up ahead of him in the Cup class, so they're going to have to work their way through this lap traffic, and this is where both Byalon and Kerry can look to find a way up a place.
I think the car that was looking a bit sideways there was Carl McMillan in car number 60, doing battle with one of the Class 4 cars, I think, as well. But yeah, here is this fight for second place amidst the traffic, and here's that battle for 5th as well. Gary Hufford right on the tail now of Paul Cook. They are in different classes though. Paul Cook in Class M2, Gary Hufford and all of the cars ahead of Paul Cook in Class M1. But here comes Chris Byalon now up the inside into Fogarty-S's, and finally it's taken about 4 laps to do it. He's made it through to second place.
So much later on the brakes into the S's. Maybe David Heisman just didn't put full attack mode on because of that lap traffic, and Chris Byalon, who's also doing the 2-hour Club Enduro race later on today, wasn't faced by the traffic, and has Rick Kerry gone through as well. As Rick Kerry got past David Heisman, they're side by side as they come off the Melbourne hairpin up towards Goddard. They come. Let's look. They're going either side of a back marker just behind Byalon. Is it going to be Heisman or is it going to be Kerry there in 3rd place? It's Heisman. He stayed ahead of Rick Kerry, but he's very sideways off of the Goddard's hairpin. Rick Kerry's going to use that V8 power of his 1 Series to challenge, but no, Heisman's car's got so much traction off the corners. He holds on to 3rd, but there's a change for 5th in the background. Gary Hufford has got past Paul Cook. And
also we've got a retirement into the pit lane. That is the number 27 car of Richard Bromley, who was running up inside the top 10. So Richard Bromley, bright green car, now is out of the race. So lots of changes then as we're coming down into the final few seconds of the timed element of this race. We'll get the last lap board shown at the end of this one. I can see it being prepared on the finish line by the marshals. So the question now is what's going to happen for 3rd place between David Heisman, number 5, and Rick Kerry there, number 2 in the 1 Series, making their way up towards Schwanzkirch, and then McLean's the right-hander towards the top of the hill. Very close indeed in terms of best lap times during the course of this race. Heisman's done a 44.57, Kerry's done a 44.48, so there's not much to choose between them in ultimate lap times.
Heisman got a bit of brake trouble. You can see him hitting the brakes multiple times before making his way into Coppice Corner. Maybe that's what allowed Chris Byalon to challenge into the S's on the last lap. So the heavy braking zones coming up. Is that going to allow Rick Kerry to challenge the former British touring car racer from about a decade or so ago? Rick Kerry not close enough into the S's. Lots of speed carried through the corner this time from David Heisman, who's in the E36, a slightly older shaped BMW compared to Byalon ahead of him. But Rick Kerry's got a good run off the S's. Has he? Is he going to be able to challenge into the Goddard's hairpin? Well, no, he's not. Maybe as well if there is brake trouble. That's why we saw Heisman run out wide a few laps ago. But this time it's Gary Hufford that's run out wide, so he was closing in that battle in front. Gary Hufford runs off the road, so he's lost 5th position once again to Paul Cook.
Meanwhile, Mike Cutt has gone on to the final lap of the race then. in his E36 M3. He's got a big lead over Chris Byron. It's well, getting on for 15 seconds now, 12.79 seconds it is, as they go over the line that time. Heisman third, Kerry fourth, Paul Cook then up to fifth then, with Gary Hufford making that mistake. Graham Crowhurst, he's running second in Class M2, in seventh overall. Then Hugh Gurney, Wayne Lewis and Kaz Singh rounding out the top 10, but Mike Cutt it is that is already about halfway round his final lap of the race, and it's probably been a far easier race than he could almost have dared to dream of.
And of course, he didn't get pole position. He was, some seconds slower than Chris Byalon in qualifying, but Mike Cutt had been very quick in the first few laps. The car he just lapped, I think Rahim Ballou got very sideways off of McLean's, but that's not a worry for Cutt because he's already got through a couple of cars. Maybe he will lap before the end. So just the Grand Prix loop now for the leader Mike Cutt to go through. He won 3 times last year, and he's starting in the best way possible into the 2019 BMW Car Club Racing Championship.
And there's the key word, it is a championship now, so it looks like, touch wood, it's going to be a great start to the year for the driver of car number 44 then, the Mike Cutt machine, double Northern Sports and Saloon Car champion as well. He rounds the Melbourne hairpin for the final time, so just one more corner for him to negotiate, and then he will see the checker flag at the end of 9 laps. Bit more backmarker lappery going on in the process of it as well. He turns his way now through the left-hander at Goddard and out of the final corner, up to the line. The checkered flag is waved, and it is Mike Cutt that takes victory in round 1 of the BMW Car Club Racing Championship.
Let's see if Chris Byalon has held on to second place, waiting for him to appear. Here he comes out of the Goddard's hairpin. He's very much pulled away from the battle. But that's changed on the last lap. Rick Kerry has got past David Heisman, so a change on the final lap. Heisman's car railing with possible brake trouble. Drops to 4th place, and it's Paul Cook that wins the M2 class, and he takes 5th overall, ahead of Gary Hufford. Graham Crowhurst come through 7th. He is 2nd in class, and 3rd in M2 will be Wayne Lewis, but Hugh Gurney should be between the two of them.
Yeah, Hugh Gurney should cross the line in 8th place there. He goes now in car number 91, so he takes the checkered flag, and it's Wayne Lewis that is there in 9th place. Yes, Kaz Singh rounds out the top 10. Jason Hollyhead and Adrian Williams come through in 11th and 12th places, but we should then have next the first of our Class 6 cars, which is Darren Ball.
Yeah, I think he's just making his way off the Melbourne hairpin at the moment in his BMW 330 that he won a number of times in the 330 Challenge last year. Darren Ball won twice in that, and he's going to start the BMW Car Club racing season in the best way possible. Here he comes out of the hairpin, and Darren Ball wins the 6-cylinder class, and he's going to beat Kevin Denwood there.
So we'll also try and find out who is ahead in Class 4 and in the Cup class as well. Outside the top 20, so they're not featuring on the timing graphic on your screens.
So these will be the cars that have already finished a lap down. I think Clive Watson went in the Cup class by a couple of seconds over Pete Skinner and David Morris. In the 4-cylinder class, that goes to Richard Harrison.
Indeed. So I think now just about everyone has taken the checker flag. Last couple of cars just coming through, and Mike Cutt leading them round on their slowing down lap. And really, I was surprised there, Josh, just how dominant Mike Cutt proved to be.
Absolutely. We mentioned Byalon quicker in qualifying, that slower start, but Mike Cutt, he pulled away but 5 seconds in about 2 or 3 laps, and that's really what won it for him, while everybody else battled behind. Mike Cutt, though, a very experienced driver, isn't he? As you mentioned, a Northern Sports Car champion, as well as a winner here last year. I think he was really enjoying racing just against other BMWs, wasn't he, last year? So we'll hear from him when he gets his way down towards the podium in a few moments. But I guess he's not really going to have too much to talk about compared to Chris Byalon behind and Rick Kerry, who really had to make their way through the order to complete the podium. And a great way to start the day, wasn't it, with the BMW Car Club Racing Championship. Great battles throughout the field. There's so many cars, it's sort of hard to feature everybody. We do our best, but when there's such a good battle for the podium positions, it's hard to look away elsewhere.
Absolutely right. Now, Mike Cutt appears a little bit reluctant to head down towards the podium, but I assure you, Mike, it will be well worth your while going down there, because you'll get to have a word with Jacob Harris in a moment, and that's a very much sought-after thing to have indeed. But we've got at least one car to be recovered from that, haven't we? Which was the car that we lost early on in the race, that of Robert Davidson down there at the old hairpin. Yeah,
looks like he had contact with the tyre barriers. That car looks a little bit damaged as well. So if they can, I'm sure he'll want to get back out for the second race of the day, which will come up this afternoon. There's lots of work to do if that occurs. We shall look forward to that, and 8 further races from the 750 Motor Club throughout the course of the day. Every race on the live stream, so don't go anywhere. There's plenty of action to give you. Here are the results then for our first race of the day, Ian.
Yeah, so Michael Cutt it was that won by 12.23 seconds in the end over Chris Byallen. Rick Kerry third, David Heasman fourth, with Paul Cook coming out on top in Class M2. Gary Hufford was sixth, then Graham Crowhurst, Hugh Gurney, Wayne Lewis and Kaz Singh rounding out the top 10. 11th place even went the way of Jason Hollyhead from Adrian Williams. Darren Ball was the first of the Class 6 winners, beating Kevin Denwood by about 3 seconds. Gareth Montgomery completing the Class 6 podium. Then Stuart Pywell, Mark Coolmer, Rob Ullman, Michael Dark and Jim Benson completing the top 20. 21st was Bill Redrup into the cars now that were lapped during the course of that race. Then Raheem Ballou and Sean Jackson. As Josh mentioned, Clive Watson was the best of the Cup class cars, beating Pete Skinner and David Morris to the podium places, while Richard Harrison was in 27th overall and winning Class 4. And there you can see a couple of cars that didn't make it to the end. Richard Bromley and Robert Davidson both retiring during the course of that opening race of the season for the BMW Car Club Racing Championship. Well, we're getting the drivers up onto the podium now, ready to be interviewed, and I can already see that Mike Cutt is having his garland presented to him, and we'll hopefully be able to hear very shortly from him.